Hey there, this is Robert Leashock, best known for playing Liam Kincaid on Gene Roddenberry's Earth Final Conflict, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of GenreTainment here on SyFyPulseRadio.com. Although you will notice some differences because we have moved away from Blog Talk Radio. In celebration, we have recut our last episode on the old site for your listening pleasure. In case this is your first time listening to us, we are your hosts, Marx
and Julie, and GenreTainment is where we talk about what's happening in the world of film, TV, and web series. We give you interviews with writers, directors, producers, and actors in both independent and not-so-independent creations. And for today's show, we are chatting with Richard Cutting, the creator of the UFO mystery series Milgram and The Fastwalkers, plus a bonus interview with the cast and guest stars of Warehouse 13.
Cutting talks to us about his award-winning series, his views on the future of web television, and we even talk in detail about UFOs.
Ooh.
Also, we're in the middle of SyFy Channel's Warehouse 13's newest season.
Yes, and we have bonus audio from interviews we recently had with stars Eddie McClintock and Joanne Kelly. Plus, we talked to recent guest stars Missi Pyle, who you may remember from The Artist or Galaxy Quest. And we have bonus audio from interviews we recently had with stars Eddie McClintock and Joanne Kelly. Plus, we talked to recent guest stars Missi Pyle, who you may remember from The Artist or Galaxy Quest, and who may or may not be related to Marx, and Enrico Colantoni, who we absolutely loved on Veronica Mars.
And I'm not related to.
You're not related to her? Can we just
Enrico,
say you are?
Enrico.
Oh.
Because wouldn't it be funny if I was related to Enrico, but not Missi Pyle somehow?
That would
it's a
be
strange
interesting.
Twist of fate.
Yeah. And suddenly you'd also be part Italian.
It could be. It could happen.
You could.
Know. Now, before we get started with our first interview, we do want to point out that the music you just heard at the beginning of the show was a snippet from the theme song of our web series, Reality on Demand, a song composed and performed by our friend T-Sean Hardy. Now, you can find our web series at realityondemandseries.com.
Now, let's get started with our first interview for this episode with executive producer, writer, and actor Richard Cutting.
Listening to GenreTainment, and this is Marx
and Julie, and today we're speaking to the creator of the UFO mystery web series Milgram and The Fastwalkers, Richard Cutting, who not only stars in the show but also directs and writes as well. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Thank you, Marx and Julie, for having me on.
So let's start at the beginning. Could you tell us just how the idea of Milgram and The Fastwalkers came about?
Well, it's sort of a funny story. A friend of mine came to me one day knowing that I was a writer, and I was writing feature films at the time, and he said, what about UFOs? And I said, well, what about them? Why should I care? And he said, I just read something interesting that half of the American public believes in UFOs, which, caught my interest because as writers, as you know, we're always looking for strong conflicts in opinion, and if half the country believes and half doesn't, there might be something there. So I waded into it, and it was kind of like pulling the thread on a sweater, the more you evaluated it, the more interesting it became. So that was kind of the genesis of it.
So you really weren't that interested in UFOs up to that point? Or because I know you're interested now.
Well, this was quite a while ago, so I've been at this. That was probably back in the mid-'90s, and I'd written different stories, but I'd never covered UFOs, and no, I never really, I was a sci-fi geek since a kid, obviously, but I hadn't really focused on that topic, so.
Oh, cool. Now, what does the term fastwalkers mean?
Well, fastwalkers is a term from the U.S. Air Force, and it describes objects that either enter or leave or both the atmosphere at great speeds that are unidentified,
I never really heard that term that much for UFOs.
I like that.
It's pretty cool. Cool term.
Yeah, and you said that was the mid-'90s. I remember back whenever X-Files was still on the air, and, X-Files would be on, and then our local news would come on, and I remember a news story where they had crop circles over next state over, and it was really interesting.
Well, yeah, Indiana is the home of one of the most famous incidents of crop circles for sure. But of alien abduction. There was a case, the Debbie Jordan case, which Bud Hopkins, who was a big, one of the top guys in the alien abduction part of that UFO phenomena, and she was a beautician, a cosmetologist who was serially abducted, and turns out was a family history, and that was the interlude at Copley Woods, which is a fairly remote part of Indiana, and it was a very big case at the time, back in 91, 92, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, and what was that movie? It was like Fire in the Sky, or something about a group of men that got abducted and people didn't believe them.
Yes, that's the Travis Walton case. Also a very, very big case. There were, I believe, 4 or 5 guys in a pickup truck coming home in, I think it was either Washington or Oregon, and they stop. They see a light in the forest. One of them gets out, Travis Walton, and he approaches the light, and all of a sudden he disappears. There's a flash, and he's gone, and then the other guy's terrified, driving to town, and it turns out the investigation begins. He's gone. He's missing for something like a week. They begin to think that his friends might have engaged in foul play, and there's a whole drama domestically there while he's out. And his account is that he would spend a week inside an alien craft, and then he appears stumbling down the road one night, and everybody had different opinions on it. But it is one of the big cases, the Travis Walton case.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
And a very scary movie too. If you've seen it.
I'm getting goosebumps and chills up my spine just you talking about it.
Well, the idea is just someone can pluck you up away.
I wonder if that's what animals, when wild animals get tranquilized and tagged in the wild, I wonder if they have alien abduction stories.
Well, that is a legitimate part of this investigation. You know, ufology, they call it. That's the study of UFOs. There are people working multiple disciplines of this. You know, there are people who only analyze soil samples. There are people who do the alien abduction stuff. There are people who do aeronautics, meteorology, photo analysis. There's so many subdisciplines, and one of them is the story of cattle mutilation. There are many cases, particularly in the American West, where cattle are found, and it's kind of gross. They're found surgically mutilated with extreme precision, and some of their organs are removed in the middle of a field, in a place where to do the kinds of incisions and surgical work that's done on them, and their blood is drained, for instance, would require, apparatus that's A, either not known to be available, or B, would be very cumbersome and noticeable in that environment out in the middle of a 1,000-acre farm. And this is a matter of great contention because, those cattle are expensive, and the farmers out there, the cattle farmers, are out of their minds with this issue, because for them it's a very practical matter. Who's killing my livelihood, And so it's very serious. And there's a ufologist by the name of Linda Moulton Howe who has done extraordinary work covering that for years and years. So this issue of animal mutilations relating to potential UFO involvement is a very big area of study.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think? What do you think about UFOs personally? Do you think they're aliens? Because I've heard everything from aliens, government experiments, aircraft,
alternate reality,
time travel, fairies. You never know. What's your feelings?
Well, I've never seen one, so I don't have direct personal evidence of a phenomena to refer to in my own mind, So everything I know about it is culled from looking at technical evidence or videos or accounts. I've interviewed lots and lots of people who've had experience with the phenomena, both just witnessing something in the sky to many people who claim to have had the actual abduction experience. And there is something going on. It may not be the sexiest answer in the world, but I just don't know, because the phenomena is you got to break it down into what you're talking about. Are you talking about, are there unidentified flying objects from other places in outer space other than the Earth? That's one whole area of studies. Are they intelligently controlled? Are they abducting people? These are all very specific disciplines of analysis, and it's very hard to tell where our black project experimental technology ends, where maybe a weather phenomena is to account, or an optical phenomena, versus something that's legitimately extraterrestrial is truly an unknown area. But I will tell you, the evidence is mounting up that there is something hard flying through the sky where you can get a radar return off it that is performing physical acts that we can't do, that we know about, and being reported as such by multiple witnesses with the technical expertise to have the confidence to say that that's an accurate set of data. There's a case down in Chile that's astounding, where, short about it, they were having the changeover of what the equivalent of our Joint Chiefs of Staff. It was a private, secure ceremony where all the generals and admirals are standing there on the, cutting a ribbon or doing whatever they do to transfer one general to another. And they look up in the sky, and there's a couple of things flying around up there, and they scramble jets, and they're getting hard radar returns, and these are military people, and the families are rolling multiple cameras on it. And the Chilean government decided to release it all, to just say, this is what we saw. So there's a lot of evidence points in some direction, and there's many, many cases like this.
That first thing that pops into my mind is, what if they're like alien tourists and they just wanted to go see the ceremony and just kind of observe, and they got caught,
Well, the funny thing is they danced around with the jets, apparently. I mean, they would stay stationary enough for the jets to approach, and the jets would lock on and get a radar return, and then they would just inch away,
Well,
really
you kind of
strange.
wonder, we as humans will like to go on safari and go out and see these wild animals in their natural habitat. You almost wonder if there's not maybe something else out there that thinks of us the same way.
Well, right. You go to motive and intention. Are they here just to see the Eiffel Tower, or do they have some other agenda, or are they just passing by? Yeah.
Are they tourists or big game hunters? I think is a big concern.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Stephen Hawking came out, I think it was last year, and said, you probably want to think through communicating with these things, because the history of colonization from a superior culture to an inferior culture technologically has not been a good history, so
it never ends well for the other end of the shtick, does it?
Yeah, so it's worth thinking about.
Yeah,
Ewoks
managed to kick serious ass somehow. Sorry. I'm trying to remember. There was several years ago, I remember watching on the morning news, they said there's these lights over a major U.S. city, and it was big news, and then I tried looking it up later, and you couldn't hardly find anything on it, but they had video of these strange lights that were just hovering but in triangular formation over the city.
Oh, you got me going now, because that's the Phoenix, probably you're referring to the Phoenix Lights case.
But I could have sworn there was one over the New Jersey Turnpike at one point too.
Well, yes, it was. There was. There are landmark cases. The Phoenix Lights case occurs in about March of '97, and there's a sort of low-flying, mile-wide V-shaped formation of orbs, and a craft glided sort of quietly overhead, and at least 10,000 people saw this thing. It covered about 300 miles from Nevada through to Phoenix and the edge of Tucson, and it was sort of like a huge carpenter square shape. And it contained 5 spherical lights and possibly light-emitting engines. One of the interesting stories there is that Symington, who was the former Arizona governor, appeared shortly thereafter and sort of laughed at the whole thing. But later, he said that he witnessed it, and what he saw was, he quotes, otherworldly. That's a very big case.
Yeah. Now, was there something over the New Jersey Turnpike, or am I somehow getting my thing scrambled?
Yeah, that's at the edge of my memory there, and I think that's more recent too. I'm trying to think of that circumstance, but there were multiple witnesses. When was that?
Yeah, but I remember it was big news, and all of a sudden they went, "Oh no, it's nothing," and then you couldn't find anything on it anymore.
Well, you bring up an interesting issue, because some of these are accounts that get reported poorly, and they tend to go away, or they get picked up in sort of individual blogs. But
I don't know if it was that one or the Phoenix one, but wasn't there one or more where the military said it was experimental flares?
Oops, are bad.
Well, experimental flares.
With the Phoenix Lights, apparently the military tried to say that it was flares. But the way that the reports went and the photos went, that flares don't, they move independently depending on the air pressure and the air movement.
I don't remember these looking flare-like, yeah.
Well, and after so many years, if these were experimental flares, they would pop up eventually.
We have them by now, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you remember a few months ago there were those sonic booms that were being heard all across the country?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think as MUFON, I know you're a member of MUFON, was there anything done on the MUFON front or anyone thinking that might be UFO related? Any ideas on that?
I never heard so much about them being tied to UFOs. I heard something about it, and this is completely anecdotal, that they were tied to some military exercises or something very, explainable. I don't know anything that tied it, or any series of reports that tied it to UFOs.
Because there was even recurring booming sounds in Indiana.
Yeah, they had them actually in our city. People were hearing them. We didn't. But other people had heard it, and actually people called and reported an explosion on one side of town. They thought there was an explosion, and they sent out the fire department, and they were driving around various town looking for a fire at night, and they couldn't find one because people called panicked, thinking that a meth lab had exploded or a gas leak had exploded, and it shook their homes, and they were concerned, thinking that there was an explosion, and they didn't think sonic boom. They were thinking, got to call the fire department.
It was multiple days, too. It was in the news.
Yeah, it was several nights.
People kept asking why it keeps happening. And then that was around the time whenever it happened in Hollywood. Then
I thought they were asteroids.
Well, they could be.
Well,
we
for
did have
instance,
asteroids not too long after.
Yeah.
You made me curious, and I just pulled up something on sonic booms. I mean, here's an account from, I don't know, it looks like 2012 at some point, or 2011. UFO triangle disappears, causing sonic boom in Arizona. I mean, I don't know that there was a trend in the reporting of the sonic boom phenomena, which I do well remember, tying it to UFOs. But the point is, the reports of some of these crafts, their speed, their angle, and their exit of the atmosphere certainly could cause a sonic boom based on radar and hard data, that they do things that are just, would cause a sonic boom,
Well, I remember years ago, it was a long time ago, I was in high school, the first time I heard a sonic boom, and it was a meteorite. And in fact, one actually hit these poor people's car in town.
Oh my gosh.
Because we heard this boom, and it took a long time, and finally it was on the news, and they're like, yeah, it was a meteor, and it hit somebody's car, and they were like, we're not sure if our insurance covers meteors. You felt kind of bad for them, but even they were sort of amused,
Yeah.
Because how many times is that going to happen? I'm knocking on wood.
Statistically pretty improbable.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Milgram and Fastwalkers is pretty accurate based on the studies you've done. I mean, they represent some of the research you've done.
Well, yeah, it's a great question because there's a lot of... What I tried to do was combine two genres. One was soap operas, and the other was a good hard look at UFOs. Now, you're at slight cross purposes there because, let's face it, we are producing a drama. But what I really wanted to do, and I premiered the show actually at a UFO conference, one of the biggest ones in the Ozark UFO conference in 2012. And I made a promise to a lot of ufologists there, whom I know personally, that I would, as best I could, in a dramatic setting, present the themes and the facts of UFOs in a way that was as accurate as I could. And I found that my angle of approach on that dramatically was to look at how this alien intrusion, if you will, affects the personal lives of people into which it comes, And so I wanted to take it from a personal drama. If you're a psychiatrist like Milgram and you're going along and having a perfectly good career, and then all of a sudden someone walks in your office who appears credible and otherwise sane, says, I'm having this experience, what does that do to you, Mm-hmm. That was sort of my way of being authentic at the same time as trying to produce a drama that people would find engaging.
Yeah. And I found it interesting, in the first episode where, the woman gets abducted, she's like sort of almost being pulled, out there, but she's saying like, oh, I need to close the window and this and that. So it's almost like her mind is sort of getting pulled in two different directions.
Well, good. I'm glad you got that, because this is a direct, as best I could write it. It is dramatic, obviously, and it's fictional, but from multiple accounts from abductees that I've talked to, there is this sort of presence that you first feel. There are stages to this that at first you sort of shake your head and something's not right. It's an intuition. And then there's almost sort of like a silent beam in your head or a hum in your head where all of a sudden you feel like you've got to go out to the garage or the barn or someplace. And then you look out the window. And Debbie Jordan in Indiana reported that she looked out her window and saw deer. And then she looked closer and they weren't deer. They were aliens. And that there is some effect on the brains of these abductees, whereby they are in a sort of an out of focus state and in a sort of attraction state toward the object that needs to see them. And it's slightly different with each one. Some people are just paralyzed in bed and they're lifted out of their beds and all of a sudden they're taken aboard a ship. Others will stumble out and walk into the experience.
Kind of like an ant trap kind of thing.
Oh yeah, drawing you there.
Well, there's a lot of discussion in that world, in the alien abduction verticality or the specialization, if you will, about the way that they, if you believe in this, have a very, very deep understanding of the way our neurologic tissue works, and that they can manipulate that at will, and that they can, whatever it is, through some microelectronic or phase type physics, they can actually directly address the brain and do things like put memories in your head or show you visions or make something look like something else. I mean, there are multiple accounts of this.
Now, from your research, can you tell, do most alien abductees have memory of the incidents immediately? Is this something that comes out later, like a repressed memory? How do they experience this? Do they remember everything that happens to them, or are they almost in like a drugged state?
Well, it's all over the lot. Some of them have vivid memories pretty much in real time. They'll get back and they'll wake up and they will have memories like you would have memories of going to a baseball game or a barbecue, and to the extent that they're good at remembering anything, like I would remember a barbecue, they will remember what happened. But as often as that, you will have people who don't remember anything. They'll be driving along a road and then find themselves just blinking and shaking their head and continue driving down the road, only it's 4 hours later and they're 30 miles away from when they closed their eyes. And the experience that happens to them in between those hours is only recoverable over time, either spontaneously, it comes up in a dream, and then they have a waking memory of it, and then if they persist to sort of fight back into what happened, they can recover it, fairly fully on their own, or often they are hypno-regressed and taken into a hypnotic state by a trained hypnotist to sort of recover these memories and talk about it, and then that's taped, and then that's played back to them, and then they begin to have that conscious process engaged. And there is great debate about the accuracy of hypno-regressed memory recall. This is
not just with alien abduction, but with anything.
Yeah, it's not admissible in court usually, and there's a real tooth and nail fight about whether it's valid evidence of anything at all, and then there are people who absolutely believe that it is a valid and credible tool, and I don't weigh in on it because I think you have to look at the whole experience and other sets of evidence and piece together, as factual an account as you can. And I don't dismiss it out of hand. I don't give it a great deal of credibility because I think parts of it are questionable, but I don't dismiss that out of hand at all,
Yeah.
And a lot of that is meant to relieve the suffering of the people who have encountered this. This however you can get to those memories, if they are true memories. And then there is the whole other wrinkle, which is, are these memories implanted by, let's say this isn't an extraterrestrial thing. Is there a program of taking people, practicing these techniques on them and implanting memories in them? I mean,
Or if you didn't
You know,
have a very credible therapist, and they either intentionally or more likely unintentionally, unintentionally would guide you, steer you in a certain direction in that state of mind.
Exactly. And that is the big contention with hypnotherapy, or hypnoregression, rather,
Mm-hmm.
that you have either, incompetent or malicious people doing that. So it is a very dense area to try and explore and tease out what's really happening. There are a few people who are known to do it. They've done a lot of casework on this, and it is their specialty to hypnoregress alien abduction cases. And if they were charlatans, they probably would have been shut down. So there are 3 or 4 people who are known to do this well. So
now, besides Milgram, is there any other popular TV shows or movies that you could say might try to be kind of accurate, or do you feel a lot of them are really, for dramatic purposes, I'm sure, just kind of going all different kind of directions?
Well, there's a series out now. I can't pull it up to memory. There's this sort of alien. There's a new program that does case studies of this person was abducted, and it's kind of like the FBI files where they do reenactments, and these seem to be pretty accurate. And they map over the accounts that I've heard pretty accurately, but they're not dramatic series. They attempt to be recreations,
Mm-hmm.
But I think of all the programming I've seen that has, when Hollywood gets involved in this, it's very hard to stay away from over dramatizing it or being inaccurate, because let's face it, the business is to have fans and
Mm-hmm.
audience, and so a lot of this is very technical stuff that isn't necessarily dramatic. But among the ones that I think, there was a show called The Intruders back in '92, I believe, with Richard Crenna. It was a miniseries, which I thought was pretty good. Taken was, I think, a Spielberg project, which had elements that were quite interesting and addressed the very important and interesting aspect of alien abduction, in that it seems to travel in families over time. So if you were abducted, chances are either your mother or father were, and perhaps their mother and father before them. It seems to stop somewhere around 1900, and maybe it's because they weren't reported, or it seems to travel generationally. And Taken covered that aspect of it really well. And Fire in the Sky was pretty well done too. It was dramatic, and Travis Walton, I've heard him say that some of the stuff that happened on the ship bore no resemblance to what actually happened to him. But so there are some programs out there that treat it, elements of it fairly. And again, I go back to why I picked the psychiatrist and trying to stay in the personal life, because I'm very interested in the conflict that it causes in people's lives.
Mm-hmm. For us, it's something dramatic or storytelling possibilities or something to talk about, what-if scenarios. But for some people in the world, it's very real to them. And
I don't know how you'd function. I mean, if something like that happened to you and you knew it could happen again, how? Like, I have insomnia as it is. I cannot imagine.
Julie, that is the heart of the matter for these folks. This is multiple traumatic incidences over which they have no control and over which they see no end.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very analogous to war veterans for people who express it out in the open when they talk about it. I went through stages of coming to grips with this. And in fact, to tout the show blatantly, I have an episode coming up. We're going to do a 3-episode season finale in the next few weeks, in which we go into that issue quite heavily. What it's like for people talking about this directly and how they cope with it, knowing that they could be taken at any time and they can't stop it.
Do they usually get abducted their entire lives, or does it stop after a certain point?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
It may stop when you get older, but you can find probably a bell curve of most of these cases start when they're anywhere between 5 and 10 years old. There are cases reported at 18 months. Somehow people know that about themselves. I don't know how that data is acquired, and then it continues through adult life. And for women, it continues over the reproductive life. There's a whole line of this that's tied to reproduction and genetics and stuff like that. So.
Now, in your research, the experiences that people remember happening to them while they're abducted, how much of that, how did you decide what to cover in your show, in your series? You know, I imagine there's probably more than one type of story about people remembering what happens to them.
Well, interestingly enough, the alien abduction experience, if the cases are piled one on top of the other into the thousands, which they are now, and there's a couple of guys that have got that kind of caseload where they can actually do statistical analysis of the kinds of events that happen along a timeline and compare similarities or differences. The alien abduction experience is remarkably consistent, and so when you know what that experience generally consists of, then that's the story we tell, and that is the story we will be telling. We haven't, as you know, season 1 hasn't really waded into that yet.
Yeah.
I wanted to get all the characters and have people, understanding who's involved here. But we will in season 2 get into that. And, these people are they're taken on board a ship, they're examined. Sometimes they are shown things on board the ship, and then they are taken back, and sometimes just dropped off on the corner with their pajamas on backwards. I mean, it's
not a good travel agent up there, huh?
It's rough out there.
Now, when people report seeing an alien when they're abducted, is it always like the classic gray type alien, or are there other kind of aliens?
The weird shaped head, or the big eyes, or?
Well, there's more variation there. If you talk to these people, there are races of aliens with different agendas, with different looks, with different types of crafts. Something that's somewhat consistent is that there's usually a one or a team of what they call gray aliens that can be anywhere from, say, 3 to 4 foot tall, and they are the standard gray aliens that you see on keychains and T-shirts, and the standard Acme standard gray alien, and they are the sort of the team that extracts the person, and then they are taken up and they meet another sort of usually taller, different looking alien who does the work on them, and then has a relationship with them, and may have a relationship with them that's over the arc of their life, and then
what do they usually look like?
Well, they have been reported as sort of like the Greys, only a little bit more, maybe larger heads, bigger eyes, and sort of more of a commanding presence. They can be referred to as the doctor or the examiner or something. The abductees report a differentiation between the people who do the examinations and the Greys, although the Greys attend this process too. The Greys seem to be somewhere cross between an orderly and an extraction team sort of thing. And then there are also other aliens that they meet who there's many races according to the abductees. There's the reptilians, and they look like reptiles. They look like what we would call reptiles. Only they're bipedal most of the time, and they're highly intelligent. They communicate telepathically. There are also what they call Nordics, which are aliens that are slightly larger than the average human being, maybe 7 feet tall, and they look like people from Nordic countries, blonde hair, blue eyes, but they have a sort of alien swept back face that clearly lets you know that they're not from Norway. But there are reports of aliens that are 3 inches tall and very vicious. There are reports of aliens mutilating humans. That there are reports of different forms of aliens with different agendas.
The small ones are fairies.
It might be.
Space fairies.
Well, they used to have reports back in the 1800s of fairy abduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine, if
they wouldn't have thought of aliens.
If people are getting abducted by aliens throughout history, then I doubt the concept of aliens would make much sense.
No.
An older mankind, and so it would have to be fairies or angels or demons or something.
In each era they would have to try to put it in some kind of context
well,
they could understand.
you bring up an important thing that back in, say, these things are reported back in the time of the great painters, Raphael and others. If you do a search, you can pull up alien images in classical art, and you will see, the Madonna, and there's a spaceship in the back, and there's a whole catalog of these things. And you're right, they were given whatever the context of the time was. They were, if it was a highly, Christian religious environment, Northern Europe or something, they would be called demons in the lexicon of the religion that was prevalent there. Or in the pagan countries, they would be called fairies and so forth. And that there's an argument forward saying that because we live in a science and technology and highly, in quotes, rational age, that we're only just projecting our local historical bias by calling them flying saucers and giving it a tech veneer, that we are captive of the same kind of bias that they might have been in 1700. But in early balloon flights, when aerial things started to happen in the 1700s and 1800s, that was sort of a crossover period where they left sort of the religious domain behind and started to think of it as mechanical devices that might be there. So that's a whole interesting area of interpretation of what these things are based on the mindset of the time and history,
Yeah, it makes you wonder in 100 years what they'll be calling it. If they'll still be calling it alien abductions or something else.
I watched Fringe, their alternate universe.
Yeah. Slipping in and out of the strings out there or something.
Yeah, you never know. Who knows? So, this has all been fascinating talking about UFOs. We probably should talk a little more about the show, though.
I tied it in there some.
Yeah. We could talk about UFOs forever, I'm sure. So,
it's fun, right?
Yeah. We're all geeks here.
Yeah.
So a lot of times what we ask web series creators when we interview them for the show is, since web series is a new type of medium, what made you decide to try web series versus, doing another film or trying to pitch it to television?
Well, I had the script, and I just loved the story so much, and I met a lot of people in the UFO field, and I felt that if nothing else, I'd just love to tell their story, and it's so dramatic, but I didn't have the means to do that. Financing a feature film is its own art form. You've got to sit for meetings, get the film funded, do pre-production, shoot it, edit it, market it, and get it out there, and that's a long pull, and I was starting to do that with the script. And then all of a sudden, this revolution in DSLRs came through, and the IT stabilized for the web, where you could actually push 1080p frames through it and have a viewing experience that was akin to a feature film experience. And then smart TVs happened on top of that, where you could actually have a feature film experience that was away from your laptop, and then multiple platforms happen, the phones and the iPads and stuff, and all that sort of happened, if you think about it, in a very collapsed period of time from, say, I don't know, I'm thinking 2007 or 8 to right now.
Yeah.
And so I said, why not? And I knew everybody in the indie film world here in the Baltimore, D.C. area, and I just went around to a bunch of people that I'd acted with and said, hey, you're a good actor, I've acted with you, would you like to do this role? We've got these big cameras, and let's see how it goes. We shot a few, and they liked it, and we just kept going. And then we found out really what web series were about. I mean, I kind of known, but from your experience, if you talk to people about web series in 2007, which is when I really started, 2008, when I really started, nobody would really know what a web series was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little hard to explain to people in the beginning that we're going to shoot 7 to 12-minute episodes and people are going to watch it on the web. I had a few conversations.
Oh yeah, we understand. When we were filming ours, we got to the point where we're just telling people it's like a TV series only on your computer.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
You did write and direct and starred in this show, and you have experience in all these things. Do you feel a pull more to working in front of the camera, behind the camera, or do you just like to do it all equally?
Well, the thing is, as you know, from being web series producers yourself, what you're constantly grinding against is, how can I get this done? So every hire matters, every job, if you can fill that seat, matters. So when I found that I could do several jobs and not have to go through the process of finding, selecting, and briefing people, it made a big difference in terms of the speed at which I could get the production up, So having written the material and having been a trained actor for so long, I realized, I will be perfectly honest with you. Of course, I thought of myself as the lead. Why wouldn't you put yourself in your own picture?
Yeah.
But it's, on another basis, as a producer, it's another hire I don't have to do. It's another casting session, and who knows the material that could carry it. So that was done. And I'd worked with so many other actors that I knew I'd been in indie films with everybody or something or other, with everybody in the show. I mean, I've acted with all these people for years. So I knew their moves, I knew what they needed to hear, and I knew that they would be great in the roles. And indeed, it's turned out that way. These folks are all really good actors, and we really enjoy each other's company to begin with. The sets are quiet, professional, we get it done. My DPs, Jim Ball and Josh Davidson, I've been working with them for years, and so it was a lot easier to just take the mantle on. I must say, I don't get up in the morning wanting to be a director. I respect that job, but it just takes to be right there and do it,
Mm-hmm. And you've added this like soap opera connection to it. I know your Milgram has been in the Indie Soap Awards, I believe.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how that connection developed. I saw that you had some credits on All My Children, so I was wondering if that's like your early...
Good choice.
Well,
my mother watched that from the time it started till the time it ended.
Because it's back now.
It's back, and so I watched it off and on over the years during the summers with her. So.
Well, that I get asked that question a lot, because who does a science fiction soap opera? And as far as I know, there aren't that many. But I have tremendous fascination now with soap operas because of working on the All My Children set. That was such a wonderful experience for me. I had multiple under 5 roles, but I got to know these people, and most of all, I got to respect the difficulty. I call soap operas the Marine Corps of the entertainment business, because these people walk down the hall, they're given 20 pages of text, they're being handed rewrites as they go up to set, and bang, they deliver it in 2 takes, and it's moving on, and they do it again tomorrow, and they do that 5 days a week. I cannot tell you how hard these people work and how good they are at it.
It really is like acting boot camp. If you can do that, then...
It really is, and they're great people to work with too. They're a lot of fun. I did not have one bad experience on any of those sets. And so I came to the soap opera from the inside of it because I was cast in them. I had never really paid much, to be honest, never paid much attention to soap operas. So I'm not one of those guys who can be expositive on soap operas per se. But then I became a fan after that experience. So I started to follow soap operas, and I thought to myself, because I'd met these inductees and the dramatic nature of the way they talk to you, they're very quiet. It's very much like a soap opera when you talk to them, because you're talking about this intensely dramatic experience in this way. And so it was a natural. And so the soap opera aspect, I came at it from being a performer inside soap operas, then a fan, and then marrying that to the genre, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, filming your show's a little more serious than some other shows that we sometimes talk to. But I was just wondering if we usually ask them if there's any like funny stories on set, because goof-ups always happen. And just curious if there's any funny story you'd like to share.
Well, there's some harrowing stories.
Ooh, we like those.
Well, not in the life and death sense, but when you're a web series producer that you're really in the business when you've got everything set up and then your location fails, or you've got everyone. It's a 98-degree day here in steamy Maryland, and everybody's dressed in a light shirt and t-shirts, and then one of your actors walks on, and the poor guy has a wardrobe that you'd be very warm in the wintertime on, and then the takes get delayed, and this guy is just standing there melting. In fact, Josh Davidson, the guy who plays the man in the brimmed hat, who's a fabulous actor, he's a producer, produces films as well. We had to put him in this black suit, and he's got long hair, and we put him in a bald cap and bald wig, and he stood there for hours, just as a puddle, waiting to go on, and he was so good about it. Everybody felt sorry for him at the end of the day, during that day of shooting, because it was a very hot day here.
Oh wow!
So you have stuff like that. That's just you wish you had the behind the scenes to watch the guy wilt in slow motion. But when his scene came up, he stood right in there and he did the shot, and it was great.
Yeah,
and
that's a professional.
And we'll see more of him. That's a professional, and we will see more of him. He's a key player in the next season.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're talking about independent productions and web series. There was a little controversy. We like to touch on base on current topics. So there's a little controversy recently in the Kickstarter community with some recent entries like Veronica Mars and Zach Braff.
Zach Braff, yeah, right.
Just curious if you'd like to weigh in on that. What's your feelings about that?
Well, I actually watched Zach Braff put out a video after that. Apparently he was taken by surprise that people would have a response to him, which I saw. I think I saw a few articles that were somewhat negative. And he explained that he's a guy who's been involved in online work for years, and that he's actively involved in tweeting to his fans, and he considers online to be part of his life, and that he just accessed Kickstarter like anybody else would. I heard the comment that guys who are in his position shouldn't be using that instrument. I tend to think that the premise of these crowdfunding platforms is for people to do outreach and fund a project regardless of who they are or what they do, and I subscribe to that. I think there's a danger in limiting that to anyone, because I think the nature of it is supposed to be fairly democratic. So maybe I'm just a capitalist at heart. I think anybody can go, and if people give them money, then more power to them. I don't really have a problem with it. I just know it's so hard to get a project going, no matter who you are, that I give anybody credit for engaging this effort. So I say, more power to them. And I think the whole argument itself, which I haven't seen tied to this, ties back up to the bigger issue, and it relates to web series producers. I'm going to speak from that point of view, of, when are we going to get a stable funding device that allows us to live and breathe like normal people in the entertainment business? I mean, the dirty little secret for us all, and I'll speak for myself, but I think it's you can project this. We fund these things out of our pocket, and we ask people to do things for us that you would never do in a normal business, just to get the project up and to get our visions out there. When are the financial people going to walk into our environment and say, no, here's, for instance, Wall Street guys say, no, here's a financial instrument that we've designed for you that will allow you to finance, and we're working on the back end to create a regular revenue environment for you. So that this whole idea of crowdfunding is a marvelous development, but it only addresses part of the issue of us having stable pools of fund, like the indie film people do, more or less, and certainly the studios do, and the networks do, to fund our projects in our own way, And I think this is just a matter of the evolution of the business. So we're taking a snapshot of a business that is clearly in fast motion evolution.
Yeah, I mean, crowdfunding itself is so new.
Yeah, is it the future, or is it just a Band-Aid at the moment? And
then really just examples of the fear of Hollywood invading it have just happened in the last couple months. So how can you really know? Now, I think if everybody starts doing it, like every star actor and B-star actor out there starts having projects every day, then there's going to be a factor where it's going to crowd people out. But
I think I would project that if that happens, you always have the other side of the equation, which is at the end of the day, if a lot of people flood the zone, so to speak, at some point it's going to be a buy side, sell side kind of equilibrium that will be reached, where regular consumers will say, well, I've seen 40 of these guys. I think I'll stand back on this one. I think that would equalize out. I don't necessarily see that as tearing the whole thing apart.
Yeah.
One man's opinion,
Yeah. You said, this is very quickly evolving, and no one knows for sure where this web series future is headed. But where do you think the future of web series is going to be? How it's going to change?
I think it's very bright. And I think there are factors that are provably supporting that statement. Number one, you watch kids and they've got an iPad or an iPod and they're watching it on their cell phone. These kids are anywhere from 5 to 15, and they're completely agnostic about the platform, the time of day. They don't need a logo that comes on before they watch the program. They watch it, they'll binge watch a whole season or not, and then they'll flit over to a game. And so what you have is a generation that's going to grow up where that is normal. Mm-hmm. So the wind demographically is at your back. And if you can stay around long enough, the way we do business is going to be the norm by providing content that is not in a time slot, that is available 24/7 around the world on multiple platforms. So this is, an incredible development, and the data just shows it. And the networks are responding that way, and so are the studios, and they're in our world, and there's crossover going on, but they don't have the magic formula yet, and we don't have the magic formula yet. So I think there's a point where everybody's going to sit around the table, and you'll see a few projects where the big players are involved with independents like us, but not so much where you sell your web series to a network, or a network creates a web series and puts it online, but that somehow the two groups kind of merge and produce this new hybrid product where everybody's good at something, and they all contribute together to make the next thing. Because if you can say one thing about web series producers, is they are nimble and they are very efficient, and they get product out there, good high quality product out there rather quickly, mm-hmm. and at low cost. If you can say great things about the networks and studios, which you should, they produce absolutely beautiful programming. They market like no one in the world, and they are very, very good at what they do. They are less nimble, and for very understandable reasons. They have a large process that they bring into play. So there's some middle ground there, I think, that hasn't happened yet. But certainly the IT, the technology, the bandwidth, the smart TVs, the pipes, those are all going to come to fruition very quickly, mm-hmm. And that will support this melding, I think, as best I can figure. Mm-hmm. And then the interesting dimensions, of course, and then you layer on the cultural dimensions. Well, does that mean that a French web series producer could work with a Hollywood studio? Yeah, sure. Does it mean that you could do tremendous transmedia projects where from the ground up a web series could also be producing a graphic novel, a video game, a feature film? Yeah, sure.
Well, cool. So the future is bright.
I like the future from Richard Cutting's point of view. That's nicer.
Well, there's always this stuff. People were producing cars before there was an interstate highway system, but they kept producing cars down muddy roads, and then all of a sudden there were trucks, and then all of a sudden, it's always that way. It's mm-hmm. not smooth, continuous development of all the elements that are necessary to produce the next really flowering evolution and brilliant product,
Yeah, but we always seem to figure it out.
Yeah, there's stress along the way, and I guess that's natural,
Well, I think that's one theme I've noticed this year with web series is everyone realizing that they're having a hard time making money, and they want to change that, because mm-hmm. there's been a lot more experimentation lately, like YouTube doing subscriptions and advertisers trying to prove to advertisers what the numbers are, so advertisers will pour in more money. Yeah. Probably motivated partly because Hollywood or certain big studios are jumping more into web series too, so they're motivated to convince people. So it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out next year or two, a couple years. Hopefully.
Yeah, well,
we'll come back and ask you then.
I think the two major developments, if you could have a wish list, would be financing on the front end, and then a more stable revenue picture on the back end. In other words, if you go do an indie film, you know what you're doing. You've got your script, you've got whatever materials you are, you sit across the table for people and you go and have financing rounds and you build your layers of financing. You know, you package it and then you shoot it and distribute it and you're doing foreign pre-sales and all that. I mean, there's a model there, in other words, for the front end and the back end. And what we don't have is that, you know. And once those two pieces start to gel, I think you'll see a real acceleration. What I see as the good news is we're not fighting for shelf space in the classic way anymore. You know, we're not all going to fight over the 8 o'clock time slot, but we will still fight over, you know, the equivalent of foreign pre-sales, like, you know, who's going to be big in Belgium and how much money are you going to make to recoup your costs for your investors. But then again, you are immediately addressable 24/7 by all audiences. You don't have to ship film prints around. You don't have all of the costs that the major features have to incur to come back to a profit, you know. And that's where the technology is our friend. And so then it becomes a marketing game. How do you get the eyeballs on your program? And that's money. That's big money.
Yeah, marketing's huge. Element.
And the studios and the networks are the masters of that. They are absolutely beautifully expert at that. You know, they know marketing. And we have a lot to learn from them.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we've learned a lot about web series, Milgram and The Fastwalkers, and UFOs.
I am not going to sleep tonight. I'm just telling you.
Well, you know what they say on the inside of the UFO world? If you see lights or things that you don't know what they are, you suspect, run away. It's not a phenomenon that you run toward.
I'll remember that.
I'm just saying.
No alien in the right mind wants to study me, so that helps.
All right, well, as we start to wrap it up, let's do some shameless promotion time.
Shameless self-promotion time. If you can tell our listeners where they can find you and your series on the web, and also please promote any other projects that you have already out or that are coming up that you want to talk about.
Well, sure. Thank you for that. We are an independent television show. We're called Milgram and The Fastwalkers. We can be found at www.fastwalkerseries.com. That's our main site. And if you go on, you can find us easily on Facebook, and I recommend that because that's how we communicate to all of our fans, and we do major announcements generally through Facebook and Twitter. And then we have other places where we are. We're on Coldcast TV, which is a big one for us. We had over 2 million episode views there. On YouTube, we are called The Fastwalker Series, and on Twitter, our handle is The Fastwalkers. And we are also on Blip, so you can find us at all those places. We come up fairly easily in search under Milgram and The Fastwalkers, and so you can find us at all those places. I've just completed a Western, which is a great project, called Day of the Gun. I play a baddie.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, always great doing a Western. That's a lot of fun. The director is Wayne Shipley, and he's a terrific guy, and this is a Western shot in Maryland, and Eric Roberts is in it. That'll be out later this summer. There is a Kickstarter campaign going on now for Garden of Hedon, Hedon, and that is a really cool horror picture by Kevin Kangas, who did Fear of Clowns and Fear of Clowns 2. It's been distributed by Lionsgate, and that is on Kickstarter now. He's doing a very interesting thing, which is he's already shot the movie, and if he hits the number on Kickstarter, he will release it for free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a whole new way of looking at Kickstarter, and the movie is called Garden of Hedon. We have so many great web series here in this area. Thurston, the Western, which is terrific, Anacostia, Anthony Anderson, and then Orange Juice in Bishop's Garden, which has been on for a long time, as has Anacostia. Web series are pretty prevalent around here. This is the Maryland, D.C. market.
So everyone check all those out.
Yes. I'm really curious about the Kickstarter movie now. I'm going to check it out.
I'm really interested about the Western, too. I like a good Western.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the Western's Day of the Garden of Eden is the horror picture on Kickstarter.
Garden of Eden.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank all of our fans who have been so great. We can't thank you enough, and we can't live without you, and we can't wait to bring you season 2. And we will be starting our Indiegogo campaign in 2 weeks, so please stand by for that and our season 1 3-episode finale coming up within 2 weeks.
Hi, my name is David Peterson. I'm the creator of the Dothraki language for HBO's Game of Thrones and the alien language and culture consultant for SyFy's Defiance, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Special thanks to Richard for chatting with us, and we wish Milgram and the Fastwalkers luck with upcoming episodes. Now let's get to a bonus interview with Warehouse 13 stars Eddie McClintock and Joanne Kelly. SyFy Pulse Radio's Ian Cullen helped us out with that one.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey.
Good, thank you.
My first question really I've got is for Jack. It's Jamie Murray. She's now doing Defiance. I know that she's coming back into Warehouse 13 for an episode, but there was something leaked a while back about a spin-off series with H.G. Wells. Is that kind of like being put to bed sort of thing now, or do you still hope to do a movie or something? Not with that.
Well, we Bob Goodman and I, one of my other writers on the show here, and I pitched a series for HG, and I think at the time we pitched it as a period piece in 1890s New York, as she was kind of a Sherlock Holmes kind of character, also scouting for Warehouse 13. So it was, but those things get expensive, and I think that just development slates get filled up with other things, and so they take their time. Nothing's ever dead in Hollywood. Sure, a movie would be great. I'd love to do a movie with that character. I'd love to do the series. I'd love to have her back on the show occasionally, just playing HG in our world. So I can't say that anything's in the offing, but I can say that I'm open to anything anybody wants to do, because I love the character. I love the relationship and the dynamic she has both with our characters and with the world in general. And I think it would be a really dynamic, fun character to have on TV that kind of isn't there right now. That sort of metrosexual period piece woman who is smarter than anybody else in the room. I'd love to dive into that sometime.
Mm-hmm. And Jamie Murray is just so good at playing those sort of characters as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember back in the day when she was on Hustle over here in the UK. So
Yeah, she's fantastic.
One of the great things about being on Warehouse 13 is when you're on a successful show, successful people want to be a part of it, and so I think we've been really lucky in regards to our guest cast, and having James Marsters and Anthony Head, in the same show. In the same season, it's pretty cool. I know the legions of Buffy fans are just going to go crazy. Polly Walker, and not just the fact that they have fans, but that they are also great actors. And I mean, I would do well to sit back and take notes a lot of times, because the talent that we've been able to have come through has been really great. And it's a testament to the show and to the writing and to the network. So.
I have to say they both dove in feet first into our family and really fit in nicely. I mean, we had a great time. The first episode, as you know, is mostly more James than Polly. Polly has a couple of beats in it, and then Polly comes back later in the season and has a very big episode 18 with Artie and Pete and Micah, and they sort of partner up together in search of an artifact, which is kind of fun. So they were just great. I mean, they it's nice that you get actors and they understand the genre, And then, as Eddie was saying, they're also tremendous actors. So they can really play into the sci-fi fantasy of it and also bring you some real good, just some real good acting, if you know what I mean. They just fit right into the group. They joined us at our level, and that's always welcome and exciting. And then we've got, coming up this season, we've got, as has been announced, Joel Grey is coming to join us in episode 14 with Steve Valentine and Nora Zetner. In episode 13, we do an episode where Pete and Micah fall into the world of noir, film noir, and we're joined by Missi Pyle and Enrico Colantoni, sort of a Galaxy Quest reunion. Two people also who just fit in with her. I mean, Enrico had such a great time on the show. He came back to hang out on the set on another episode just because he liked everybody so much.
Yeah.
And
he said the vibe he goes, man, the vibe on this set is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I just want to come and hang out with you guys. And, if I may say so, it really comes from the top down. Jack sets a tone on the show. It's the tone is basically...
Well, we also make sure that when they show up, everybody gets a hooker in their hotel room, so that makes a huge difference.
There you go.
And people really respond to that.
Shaved dogs.
Yeah. But we also, and Missy sings in the episode, which is also a lot of fun. We have
Ricardo Chivara.
Liam, Charlie Weber comes on to play with us in episode 6.
Cynthia
Watros. This is in episode 17. I say 6, when I say 6, I mean 16. Sorry, it's the 10 episode thing that throws me. And of course, Anthony Head is coming to join us for the last 3 episodes, and he turns out to be quite a powerful character. He plays, as has been released, he plays a 16th century rogue alchemist named Paracelsus. And I like to joke that our show is probably one of the only shows on TV that you can have a great time, laugh, cry, and get course credit for watching, because we do lots of teaching.
Quick question for Joanne. Joanne, you did a couple of episodes last season where you were working very, very closely with Claudia, as in you were taking Claudia out into the field. Would you like to do more of those kind of episodes where it's just you girls? Because I just found that the dynamic between those two characters kind of fun to watch. And
I mean, I love the mix and match episodes. I think Eddie and I are such old hands at being together all the time, and there's a sort of ease when we do our episodes together. But the mix and match are fun. They're different. It's a different stride. I like to see, the way that Micah's and Claudia's relationship has kind of grown as their relationship has grown. We see, sort of at the beginning in season 1, a big sister, little sister kind of a deal, and as Allison herself and Claudia, the character, has gotten older, we see them more, on equal footing, which has been really interesting to explore.
Cool. One last question for Jack before I go. I noticed that I actually read somewhere that you're likely to be exploring the thing with Claudia, that she's essentially a caretaker at the warehouse. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I'm sorry, just the first one. The what with Claudia?
That she's kind of like a caretaker at the warehouse, that she potentially could be replacing Mrs. Fredericks. It was actually, I read somewhere about it, and I actually wanted to see in the episode. And are we going to see something about that this season?
Absolutely. Actually, that's a big driver to our season finale. We've always teased that Claudia has a destiny at the warehouse beyond just being an agent. And one of the things we'll learn into certainly in season 4.5 and even into season 5 that we've been talking about here in the writers' room these days is that there are certain people destined to be connected to the warehouse, be in the life of the warehouse. No matter what the world does or what the world looks like, they will always be connected. And Claudia is just one of those people that was destined to be here, as you hear. You'll hear Artie talk about it in season 4.5 that she was kind of born to this. And so we tap on it a couple of times. As you know, last year we had Mrs. Frederick take Claudia along with her to see the birth of an artifact so she can have a little peek behind the curtain into what Mrs. Frederick does. And we're going to keep playing that dynamic of Claudia's starting to sense her own connection to the warehouse, starting to sense that she actually is, in a way, organically connected to Warehouse 13 in a way that's beyond what anybody else is. And it's kind of beautiful, and Allison plays it very nicely, very subtly, and plays into it. We'll see it in episode 14 as well. There's a cool story where, episode 15. There's a great story where she and Kelly Hu are on a hunt in the warehouse to find out something's going wrong with the warehouse, and they're trying to figure it out. Kelly and Steve and Artie also are in that story, and it's kind of fun. We definitely will tap on that.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. And I'm also curious to know which hot, sexy Hollywood actress Eddie would want to play his sister.
Oh my, that is such a dangerous question.
What actress would I want to play my sister?
Yep.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay. Well, I'm sure Jack will be pleased to hear that I'm be putting the feelers out to get her signed up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sure she'll. Yeah, absolutely. If anybody on the line knows Jennifer Lawrence,
Warehouse 13.
If anybody online knows Jennifer Lawrence and can connect me with her, please help, because I don't know when I'll reach her.
Hi, I'm John Rogers. I created the show Leverage and wrote Transformers, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
We're glad to see Warehouse 13 back. Now let's hear Mark's chat a little with recent Warehouse 13 guest stars Enrico Colantoni and Missi Pyle, who Marx may or may not be related to.
It's a mystery.
Very cool. But the real question is, are you both related to Ernie Pyle?
Of course.
Famous journalist. That would be cool.
I'm in black and white! What's our next move?
Hello, handsome.
Tell that to my aching jaw.
Don't do this! No!
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for speaking with us today.
Hey, Marks.
Hey.
Hi.
Well, first I want to say real quick that I'm a big fan of you two. I love your work, Enrico, especially big fan of your work on Veronica Mars. And
thank you.
And Missy, been a big fan of your work for years, and not just because we have the same last name, although it doesn't hurt.
I know, how exciting!
I know.
Are we related?
I suspect distantly, maybe, but I don't know. So I have a quick question. We haven't heard much about who your characters are, so I'll give you a semi-cryptic way out, so you don't spoil the show, but give us some clues. Could you explain your character in one word, and what would it be, and why?
Rico, please go first.
Stuck in a world, madly in love with Missy's character.
I don't know if you heard the one-word thing.
About stuck.
Mad.
Stuck love.
They're all combined. It's all one word.
Mine. Oh God, she's. I guess I feel like madly stuck madly. I mean, I don't mean to steal your same thing, but it's also like this platinum. Everything is hazy.
I don't know why. For me, the first word that comes to mind for you, Missy, is breathy. I just kept feeling like the character was very breathy.
And
you don't understand. You need to help me.
Heaving bosom.
That's two, but we could hyphenate.
Yeah, hyphenated, heaving bosom, or put it all together with that.
And Enrico was tense. There was a lot of tension. Well, you were tense. You were worried about these guys. Coming into your world and trying to steal your girl.
Tense.
They're trying to take your girl. They're trying to shake your world up. Who are these people in the middle of your world? It's kind of cool. Okay. You could say writer. I'm pitching on your words because.
Writer, chanteuse. Is that the word?
Chanteuse. Oh, yes, chanteuse. Yes, that's a good one.
Actually, you're punching up my words is what you're doing, Jack.
Oh. Welcome. You're welcome.
Great.
And
okay.
Did we do it?
I think
We
so.
answer anything.
I think I've said this even off the record that it was one of the most enjoyable cast and crew experiences I've ever had. I mean, Missi was there at the beginning, and Jack was just
I was in and out.
like crazy off
prepping
the
next
wall,
one.
just happy, energized. I think I went back months later just to watch him work, didn't I?
You did. You said, can I just come back and hang out at the set?
Yeah,
and
and just
miss
hang out with
everybody?"
you guys because it was so delightful to be there. Well,
It was,
That was my
very
experience.
delightful. I mean, I had a ball when they told me Enrico was doing it. I think they told me that. I think they told us both that the other was doing it.
That's the way we got you each to agree.
That's what they got us to agree. I was like, oh God, yes. And then I was like, they told me, and he was like, oh, they told me. And then Eddie, when we got there, Eddie was so excited to have, company.
Oh, we talked about Galaxy Quest. I mean, we talk about Galaxy Quest all the time. We even quoted it on in our season premiere last year. Claudia quoted it, "Never give up, never surrender." So we're huge. We're all huge Galaxy Quest fans. So when we had this little mini reunion, it was we were all just so excited. It was like, oh my god.
I was a little disappointed that we didn't have to show up in Thermion.
They didn't sit in the wigs at least.
If only I'd known that was an option.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was a legal option, but.
Well, you're in black and white. I'm not sure it would play.
Anyway,
we don't know. You're in black and white the whole episode, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we sort of had this black and white tinge to us, didn't we, Missi?
Yes, you played it. Well, you played it in black
and white, sort of gray.
You played it in black and white too, which is different.
Yeah, we totally played in black and white.
The Thermians, this is a little tidbit, when they caught the historical documents, they were in black and white. So
that's right.
When they actually created these characters for them, I mean these what do you call them, alter egos? When we actually created them, they were in gray, shades of gray, because the Thermians saw the TV show in black and white.
In black and white.
Wow, that's deep. That's a deep connection.
Right.
I know I speak for the cast. I absolutely certainly speak for the cast when I say that they had a magnificent time working with these two. I mean, they still go on and on. I was out at dinner with Joanne last Saturday because we all went to see Eddie's movie, and we were talking about how much fun it was working with the two of you. Joanne was just saying, "Oh, we've got to find a way to have them back on the show." Yeah. I've already actually thought of a way to get you guys back. So,
cool.
I guess I'll have to tell one of you.
Well, you know what else
was
was
back,
fun,
and tell the other
just
one.
Like doing the camp film noir. That just
it was
to be
hilarious.
To play in that world was just like, oh my god. Everything else was gravy.
You did it so well too.
Well,
the whole
see.
dialect.
I used to do a lot of sketch comedy, and I used to do this like film noir lady. I mean, it's just really fun to do that, and to actually have an excuse for it, to keep it real is definitely a challenge. But just stand next to you, Enrico, just like and saying those things to you.
Oh my god!
It's like heaven.
I love your channeling. You kind of channeled Judy Holliday a little bit.
Maybe.
Who, I did?
She wanted to come in.
Yes, Enrico, you did. That was what was so special about it.
I think Missi and I could have gazed in each other's eyes for a whole hour and a half. Just like,
at least the whole season.
Right?
It was so fun.
The great thing that I noticed with you guys working the noir dialogue was you could really, you can so sink your teeth into it because it's not pedestrian. It's all very, the words kind of are bitten off, and you guys really bit into it when you especially in the scene in the alley, Enrico, with the gun.
Oh, good. I haven't seen it.
Oh, right. Well, I'm sure I should.
But I'm gonna trust you on that, Jack.
No, it was great. It was it was when you're because I love the way noir people hold guns. They don't really point them at. They just hold them at waist level.
They just kind of keep them right there, ready to go.
You gave them there.
Yeah.
So you don't finish. You don't finish the words. You do a lot of head, tilting of the head.
Yes.
But I think
it's a lot of eye acting.
I mean, it's kind of all rooted in that old sort of American standard speech, right? From Katharine Hepburn and just how actors were even taught back in the 30s. There was a clipped sort of standard American speech that everyone had. So I don't know if it was the noir that made it up or just actors were trained to talk like that at that
Well,
time.
a lot of noir too is so much of it plays in the looks. Like we would cut we'd cut to somebody giving somebody a look of the look of death, with a look of fear, the look of so much of it plays in the dun 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 when you see somebody's eyes.
Yeah.
You know, and McMurray would throw a strip of light across your eyes like Joan Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
Did you keep the part where Eddie throws the gun back?
Yes. Yeah.
Did that make the cut?
Oh, I love that. Well,
That was
maybe I
fun.
love it because I pitched it, but
No, but it
yeah,
was,
there's a moment when Eddie.
what a
it
surprise.
was so noir.
Yeah, there was a moment when Eddie takes his gun away from him. Eddie takes Enrico's gun away from him, and then at the end of it, just throws it back to him, like, you know, just saying, just be careful with that thing. I think it's such a noir private detective move because he's what is it? Unkillable. He's immune to danger. You know,
It's great. I'm glad it made it.
I had an absolute ball. I mean, it was from the moment we got there, everyone was so great. I just sort of like, I just want to keep doing this show.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, we tried to figure out a way to keep us on.
Oh yeah,
one more
got
time
a way
would
to
be
get
good,
you back.
I think the best thing to do is to blackmail someone and to
Hi, my name is Crystal Lowe from Primeval New World, and you are listening to GenreTainment.
Well, thank you to SyFy for letting us talk to the stars and the guest stars, and we now know that Warehouse 13 is nearing its end. I know, so sad. SyFy recently announced that it has renewed Warehouse 13 for an abbreviated 5th and final season. Now, we're sorry to see it end, but happy at least that SyFy gave them enough warning to hopefully wrap up the show in the way that the writers and fans will like.
Yes, that's good at least.
Yeah, that doesn't always happen.
No, unfortunately not. Well, so that's it for today's GenreTainment. Not our final episode.
No, it's not our final episode.
Our newest episode on this new channel.
Yes.
We'll be back soon with all new guests from our favorite films, TV shows, novels, and web series.
You can also check out the other great shows on this channel like SFP Now, The Roundtable, and more. And if you look on our old Blog Talk Radio channel, you can look up months of our archived episodes, but never fear, we'll have lots of great guests coming up, so we'll fill in the new site with tons of great new shows too. Until next time.